Welcome to the Fruity Knitting Podcast. This is episode 49. I'm Andrew.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Madeline.
We have a totally international episode for you today with guests coming from all four corners of the globe. Andrea, did you realise that not one of our guests today is a native English speaker?
That's true.
But you will find that they are all very eloquent and totally charming.
Yeah, we have feature interviews with both Veera Välimäki from Finland and Joji Locatelli from Argentina. These two really exciting designers collaborate every year to produce a collection of designs that they call interpretations. And this year is their 5th edition. So there's 12 designs in the collection. And for this edition, they decided to work with 12 different yarn dyers from all around the world. So we thought it would be really interesting to get the yarn dyers' perspective. And we've asked 2 of the yarn dyers to talk about their process of working together with the designer to come up with a really unique colourway.
Yeah, so Julie Asselin from Quebec worked on one of Joji's designs, and Kathrin from Aschaffenburg, which is just up the Main River from us here in Germany, worked together with Veera Välimäki. We are really excited to have Madeline back at home safely after her 5 months travels in Australia. We'll be hearing some stories from that later on in the show. Andrea has prepared a really interesting tutorial. We have some steaks to be cut, but we also have a finished object to show, so we'll be starting with Bring and Brag.
Yes, I'm wearing Caitlin Hunter's Tenure modified. I'm really happy with it. It's reasonably rare to get a finished object on our podcast.
Yeah, the major projects.
Yeah. So I used Madeline Tosh yarn with this project. That's 80% merino, 20% mohair. It's the first time I've actually used Madeline Tosh, and I'm really happy with it. I think the yarn really works well with this design. It's very drapey. The colour is stunning. So I have talked a fair bit about the modifications I've made, so I'm just going to summarise it now. But basically what I did was change it from a summer garment into a winter garment so that I can wear it more often in our 9-month winter in Germany.
Climate, yeah.
In our cold climate. So the first thing I did was raise the neckline. So I made it higher and I've made it wider. So it's more of a boat shape. I also knitted the edging in the opposite direction so it curls inwards instead of curling outwards. That's just a minor detail. And I added long sleeves on it, and with this little ruffle at the bottom, which I think is cute. It keeps it sort of looking a little bit dressy still. Yeah. So I'm really happy with it. I think Caitlin is a really excellent designer, very original, very exciting. I'm always excited to see what she's going to produce next. And I keep thinking that a lot of her designs would look fantastic on you. You'd look great in them. So
well, I'm always open for some more
You wouldn't say no.
You wouldn't say no. Yeah. So I'll definitely be knitting her designs again. And so let me stand up and show you how it looks on me. I'm super pleased with it, really, really pleased. And I'm wearing it with my kilt in anticipation for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, which is next week. Yay! Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's got a bit of a cropped effect, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wide and cropped.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty spunky, dolls, I'd have to say.
Well, I think it's nice because it's quite plain at the top and just with the lace at the bottom, it's very elegant.
Yeah.
It's not too much.
Yeah, it is very elegant. It's gorgeous.
And nice
so
touch.
thank you, Caitlin Hunter, for your gorgeous design. I'm also wearing my kilt because today is steek cutting day, and steek is a Scottish word. It means to bridge or to close or to shut. So
let's move on to the steaks.
Yes. So this is my Sumfrey design. It's a design by Marie Wallen. I've finished the body of it finally. It's got an all-over Fair Isle pattern, as you can see. Marie wrote it to be written in the flat, but I've easily converted it to knit it in the round, and I've had to put steeks in it. So I've got an armhole steek there and an armhole steek there. I've got a front neck steek there and a little baby back neck steek here.
Yep. That's right. And to celebrate the return of our favourite daughter, Andrea has decided to honour Madeline with the privilege of cutting the steaks. And part of that, of course, is the ritual of the sip of scotch. This is a Lefroy scotch. It has been described as a whack of peat. It is extremely smoky. The marketing material from the distillery actually says it's like lighting up a cigar and then just putting it in your mouth and eating it. So, Madeline.
Our daughter is 19.
Our daughter is 19 and we
Yes.
encourage responsible drinking and responsible steaking.
Yeah.
Madeline, cheers.
Bottoms up.
It's so strong, the smell. Oh, my God.
Whoa.
It really does feel like smoke is rising up through your nostrils.
Yeah, it's also been described as drinking campfire and dirt.
That's bad though.
It's actually good.
Yeah.
I like it much better than... I think it gets better with the years. It's 12
Yeah.
years old now.
Yeah.
I bought it for Andrew's birthday and I went and asked the Scotch expert to give me the strongest tasting Scotch. And
Yeah.
I think when we first had it, it was undrinkable
Yeah.
for us.
It's
But it's actually
full
good.
on. I think it's getting
Yeah.
more manageable.
Oh, it hits you in the nose though. Okay, now for the steak cutting. We're going to start off with an easy steak first. So we'll take the back neck steak. It's just a little one to get you in the mood.
Warm up.
Warm up. Okay, so Madeline, just cut right in the middle. That's it. Well done.
There.
Cool. It always reminds me of a hot water bottle cover and the way it's all closed up, and it's really exciting to see it open up. So this is the front neck steak.
Is that right?
Yeah, right down the middle, nice and slow. It's both really exciting and scary, especially doing it on camera, because you never really know if the garment is going to really truly fit you until all the steaks are cut. So that's the neck opened. Okay, so here we go. There were the easy bits. So this is an armhole steak. So again, I've got my hand underneath, so you can't cut 2 layers of fabric.
Okay.
Start here and right down the middle, finish here. But before, wait. Before you get there, I'm going to put my finger there so you don't start cutting further.
Okay.
Okay? So,
Is this the middle?
yes, that's the middle. So off you go. It's a good idea to have 10 steeking stitches, especially if you've had some scotch. You've got more room for failure. Well done. So you can, make sure you get through the whole thickness of it. Is it fun?
Yeah.
Scary? Okay, cut up to my fingernail.
I'm afraid of cutting your fingernail.
That's it.
Okay.
Yay!
Oh.
One more.
There.
Cool. Okay, that's one armhole.
Whoa.
This jumper looks gorgeous. Okay.
Okay, so let me just see. So this is where I changed all of my yarn. So where all that dimple, all
Yeah.
those dimples are. So straight through there.
Yep. There?
Yeah. The scotch has a very warming feel, doesn't it?
Do you think it's helping?
Yeah. Is it fun cutting knitting?
Yeah. I'm just not wanting to wreck your work.
It's all right. Hack away. There you go. Good, yay! Whoa. Be careful. Okay, so there we go. It's all cut open. And I am totally dying to run off and try this on to see if it actually fits me. I hope so, because I've knitted it a couple of times
If
already.
it doesn't, you can give it to me.
Okay, so I'm going to do just that. I'm going to run off and try it on while you're watching the next interview, which is coming up.
Yeah, so back in episode 16, we had a full interview with Joji Locatelli, which focused on her background and her influences and her design processes. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on the Interpretations Volume 5 collection, and particularly Joji's collaboration with Veera Välimäki, the other designer, but also with the yarn dyers that they chose to work with.
Yeah. And the time that we had to do this interview with Joji is in Argentina, as I've said. Argentina.
Canada.
Yeah. Joji lives in Argentina, and at the time we were meant to do the interview, she was at her summer house, which has a bit of dodgy internet. So we had to be very creative with a lot of back and forward to come up with this interview, which we've done in a different format, but I think it's a lot of fun and you should really enjoy it. So I'm running off to try this on and enjoy the next interview.
Creations was born 5 years ago. So Veera and I were already thinking of creating a collection together. And she came up with this concept where she said something like, well, we both come from such different worlds, we work in such different environments, we even work on opposite seasons. So it was interesting to see how we both felt and could translate a certain word into a pattern. So for some reason, 12 patterns for us meant a good amount of patterns. We thought it was we could provide good variety. Initially, we thought it would be, for each book, we would do 6 garments and 6 accessories. And for many of the books, we have kept that amount, but sometimes we get a bit excited with garments. The key point here is we pick 6 words, and each of us come up with some sort of design that reminds us of that word. Those words we usually brainstorm. It's very spontaneous. We would text each other and say, okay, it's time to start thinking of new words for the new book. What do you have in mind? Do you have anything in your list? What we try to pick are words that, for example, not words that only have one meaning. Like take the word rough from our latest collection. You cannot describe rough with just one word, right? There's not one synonym to that word. We usually pick words that have to be described by a sentence. We both are non-native English speakers, so that means that sometimes we might get a different feel from the word. Rough is one of my favorite words in this book, and perhaps the other favorite one is shelter, because as a knitter I always think of knitting as a way of making things that look cozy, that make me feel at home and safe and warm. So for me, shelter is a word that many knitters can identify with, and I was very happy to create something for that word. When Veera and I started working together, I have to say, when Veera agreed to work with me a long time ago, I was so shocked and happy and humbled, and it started, for me, it all started as a big admiration for her. So I'm not saying that I'm disrespectful towards other people, but especially with someone that I admire, I was very careful not to trespass any boundaries. I felt that I've always been very respectful of our differences. So I have felt the same way with her. I felt that she understood that we were very different culturally and that we worked in different ways. I feel that respect has been the key word in us working together, always trying to make our best to impress the person that's working with you and to come to the collaboration with the best that you have, and always try to be understanding if someone is not it's not exactly the same person as you are when you work with them. It was harder at first because I kept emailing her and she would get back to me very briefly. So at first I was disappointed that I couldn't have long conversations with my new friend, but then I really learned to cherish that about Veera. She's much quieter than I am, and I have become in love with that particular characteristic of Finns. So I think it's what makes us work very well together, that I can take over when it's needed, and I can be quiet now that I have learned how to be sort of a Finn next to Veera. We took the 5th anniversary issue very seriously. We wanted to make something great for both of us and for the knitters. And for both of us, we chose a place that we both wanted to go. So even though I live in Argentina, I have never been to southern Patagonia region. So I've been wanting to visit Glacier Perito Moreno for a long time, and we chose a location for the photo shoot that's near that. It's called El Chaltén, and it's in the province of Santa Cruz. Yeah, so we rented a cabin in the middle of the mountains. It was very solitary. You do need a car. There's no other way to get there, and it's very up in the mountains, in the middle of this beautiful beechwood forest. So we asked my friend Rafa if he would help us with the photos, and he said yes, because he was also very excited about taking a trip up to the mountains. And so Veera's husband Isaki and my husband Charlie also came. So we were a group of 5 people. For Veera and I, it's very important to be the models for our book. We're both, as any other woman, very self-conscious about being the models in the photos, especially for a printed publication. We always feel like someone would do that job much better, but we also feel that our presence in the book talks about the identity, talks about the woman who's going to, the woman behind those designs that also likes to wear them. So we have made a commitment that we will always be the models in Interpretations. If you see Interpretations volume 70, you will see a very old lady wearing those designs there. So we thought it would also be fun to sort of document how we changed through the years with those books. So yeah, as you can imagine, we have to wear some makeup, and we have to have something done to our hair, which is not a lot, but some makeup has to be done. I'm the one who usually does the makeup for both of us, and Veera does the hair for both of us, because I can't, for the life of me, braid my own hair, and Veera likes to wear very little makeup, and so I like to add some more. As I'm packing all my things to bring to Patagonia, all the clothes, I realized I don't have my makeup bag with me. I had left it here at the summer house, and there was no way we could come back. I had to go to our local pharmacy, which has very limited stock of makeup, and well, they wouldn't let me in at night. They would like help me through this tiny window, and I would tell the lady what happened, and she was helping me find emergency makeup, like basics. I ended up spending a ton of money in makeup that I don't know if I really needed to buy at the time, but yes. So we traveled, and we had a spare makeup pouch, but that was really nerve-wracking because we really do need some makeup for a book photo shoot. Veera and I dress very simple. We wear very basic clothes like denim, cotton t-shirts all the time. So for most of the book, it's just clothes that we wear on a regular basis. It's really never too hard for us to put together the styling for the books, because we just throw there some jeans, some black pants, and then the rest is just basic layers. Of creating 12 yarns for volume 5, 12 new colorways, came up in a brainstorming session with Veera, and we were actually unwinding after photo shooting volume 4, and we were like so excited. The photo shoot had gone so well that we wanted to already commit to volume 5, and we thought, how do we make it special? And then, so we decided that it was a good idea to ask our friends, because we have many good friends who are also dyers, and in different scales, like bigger dyers and smaller dyers. So we said, we could ask our friends. Even though we were very happy with the idea, it was actually a very tough decision. It was a sad decision. We were happy to ask the people who we asked, but we were also very sad that we couldn't ask at least another 12. So those that we picked were picked because we love them. They are amazing companies and amazing friends. And also we tried to pick companies from all around the world. So we have companies from the US, we have companies from Canada, we have companies from Europe, and we have companies from Australia. So that if you buy the book and you want to maybe splurge in buying the same yarn as we use, you can pick up, you have dyers that are probably near you or around you within the recommended yarns. So we thought that would be nice, because we're so, we come from the world. We're from Argentina and Finland. So we wanted to also represent that variety with the yarn dyers. Once we picked the companies that we were going to work with, we sent them a very precise idea of what we wanted. So most of the dyers were only working with one color. Skein was working with 3 colors. But most of them only received one color, so they knew what direction to take. So there were 2 dyers that had to make a multiple color combination. I'm wearing my favorite design probably of all the book. It's called the Ragged Coat, and it's part of the rough theme. It is made out of Macintosh decay in the special colorway Pebble, and I like that it has these unfinished raw edges. It has sort of like a V-neck and beautiful pockets, a very easy to work cable, and a broken rib pattern all over the body. In the back too, it features the cables and the broken rib. And I just love that it's so comfy and oversized, and I just adore the colorway. This is my tree sticker wrap. For me, this is a dream come true. I've always wanted to wear something heavy and cabley and luxurious like this. I finally have one. This tree sticker wrap is made out of the Plaque Knitted Primo yarn in our special colorway called Pewter, and it's a very wide, long, luxurious wrap, and it features a beautiful lace and beautiful cable panels, and it's just the same pattern repeat all over the wrap. because I think that when you have something so glorious, so wonderful as this yarn combined with these stitch patterns, you really don't need much else. This cardigan is called Quiet Stars. It's part of the Bliss theme, and it's actually featured in the cover of the book. My favorite part of this design is the color. For some reason, I think this color looks good with my skin, so every time I wear this cardigan, I feel happy. And it's funny because the colorway is also called Happy. Quiet Stars has many exciting details. The construction, sorry that it's wrinkled. I was supposed to take this out of the bag, but I forgot to. So the construction starts here in the back neck. So you have to work this lace patterned collar, and then you continue working the back and the front. It has satin sleeves that are worked seamlessly from the top down, and it features an all-over texture pattern with some pearl stitches that actually give the sweater a much more delicate look. It has dies that you can add to the sweater to wear it closed like this. And the back features an A-line, so it's actually more flattering if you have a body type like mine.
So this is my under construction work. This is a vest that Andrea is designing for me. You can see the diagonals here coming out beautifully. It's looking really good, isn't it, Dales?
It is.
Excellent work.
It is.
I'm going to keep working on it. Andrea says I need to make more progress.
Yes.
Cracking the whip.
I'm wearing my Free. I've cut it open. You can see it on me. I'm layering it at the moment over the top of...
It's so trendy, Dales.
Over the top of Caitlin's design. So it's a tiny bit snug, but I think it'll work out once all the steeks have
I think it's going to be good.
Rid of it, yeah. And the neckline is looking really good. These are just extra little flappy steeks I have to cut away and sew down afterwards. So there's just one other thing I wanted to talk to you about that I did on this design, and that's back in the last episode we featured Karen Clark as the knitter of the world, and she showed us two very stunning vest designs by Janine Bages. And one of the things that she said was that she learned how to do shoulder shaping in the round using short rows from Janine. Well, my ears suddenly pricked up because I've never heard of a technique like that before. And I don't mind purling in Fair Isle. I know I've learned how to do it, and I can catch the floats from both hands. And I actually think it's a good skill to learn because it gives you a lot more freedom to do shaping without having to put in steeks all the time. Sometimes it's just simply easier to be able to purl. But I'm always excited to learn a new technique, so I looked it up. If you want a written description of this technique, you can go to Janine's website, and she has a PDF document that you can download and print out. So we'll put that detail in the show notes. Yep. But I thought it would be really interesting to make a short film of how I adapted her technique to fit this design. So that's coming up now. It's just a really short segment, and straight after it you're going to meet two very knowledgeable and very talented yarn dyers. Yep,
that's right. So Julie Asselin and Kathrin Valk both share their experience of working together with the designers on the Interpretations collection.
Yeah. I'm trying out a new technique of shaping the shoulders in the round using short rows. If I'm doing an all-over Fair Isle design that requires shaping in the shoulders, I would normally stop knitting in the round and just do the final shoulder shaping by knitting in the flat. This means purling back on the wrong side of the fabric. And purling in Fair Isle isn't as easy as knitting in Fair Isle because it's harder to see the pattern from the previous rows, which normally guides you. I came across a technique of shaping the shoulders in the round on an all-over Fair Isle design by Janine Bages on her blog feralknitter.com. So I thought I'd try it out on this design, which is the Samfrey by Marie Wallen, and it's from her Shetland collection. So that you can keep knitting in the round, Janine uses a variation of the short row technique. Instead of casting off stitches in steps, she gets you to hop from the front to the back early, leaving the live stitches on waste yarn, and as you spiral around, you'll be knitting in ever smaller circles. So basically what I've got in front of me here is the body, just so that you understand it. I've got an armhole steek here, another armhole steek here. I've got a front neck steek here with some front neck live stitches on waste yarn. If I turn over here, I've got a little back neck steek here and some live stitches for the back neck on waste yarn. What Janine gets you to do is you would start here, you're knitting right across, but just before the edge you stop short, and I've left 6 stitches from the front, 6 stitches from the back on waste yarn. I jump across, I knit along the back, and then I stop short again, 6 stitches from the edge, and I put the back, 6 stitches in the front, 6 stitches on waste yarn, and jump across, continue around, and this time I jump across even earlier and leave the next 6 stitches on the same waste yarn. So finally I'm right at the middle, and I've got 6 stitches either side of my 10 steeking stitches on the front and the back. So I'm really down to a very small circle here, and all the rest of the live stitches have been put on waste yarn, and you can see that here is smaller than there, so that's the slope, that's the shoulder slope being created. If I show you from above, you can see the short row crossovers leaving long strands connecting the front to the back every time I've jumped across. You do have to plan your shoulder slope, both when you're converting a pattern that already has shoulder shaping but's written in the flat, or when you're going to put in shoulder shaping to a traditional fair isle garment that has straight square shoulders. But in my case, shoulder shaping is already written in the pattern. Nevertheless, I still need to rewrite the pattern for it to work out correctly. The first thing you need to know is the decrease gradient of the shoulder. Normally the depth is between 2 and 2.5 centimetres. In my case, in my pattern, it's 2 1/4 centimetres. If, for example, you're working from a pattern that's written in the flat and it tells you to cast off in steps, so 4 steps, each with 10 stitches, you'll actually be doing that over 7 rows because you need to purl back in between each cast off row. This is because you can't cast off in both directions. You need to keep coming back to the edge to cast off, and that means that I am doing all of the cast off over a series of 7 rows, and the 7 rows gives me this depth here. When knitting in the round and shaping the shoulders, you can leave off stitches on every single round. Therefore, instead of leaving off 10 stitches at the beginning of every second round, I could leave off a mixture of 5 or 6 stitches from each of the 7 rounds, and that would actually give me a smoother slope. So coming back to my knitting, I'm now ready to cast off my front and my back neck steeks, and that'll leave me with live stitches on the shoulder slopes. So I will pick up the stitches from the waste yarn, and I'll have 1 needle picking up the front shoulder, 1 needle picking up the back shoulder, and then I'll do a 3 needle bind off. So the next step for me to do is a 3 needle bind off. Now Janine suggests doing a decorative join to hide the short row distortions by doing the 3 needle bind off on the outside. I'm not sure that I want to make a feature of the seam by having it on the outside. I think I want it to be a little bit more subtle, so I am going to try to turn my work inside out and do the 3 needle bind off from the inside. The sweater is now turned inside out. You can see I've got these floats going over the top on the inside from where I jumped across on my short rows. I'm not quite sure yet how I'll handle those, but we'll start off with the 3 needle bind off. So that just means that I knit 1 stitch from the front needle, 1 stitch from the back needle together. I do that twice, and then I lift the first stitch up over the second, and I'm casting off as I go. Now that I've come to one of the strands that was joining the front to the back, I'm just going to try to knit it together with the stitches. So I'm putting it makes it quite tight, but I'm hoping that's a good thing and it'll tighten the whole thing together. So I'm just putting my needle through the first stitch and the back stitch, as well as catching that float. Put it all off together like that. So I've finished my 3 needle bind off on the inside. There it is there. It was pretty good. It was a bit fiddly, particularly with all those floats. I tried to catch them in with the stitches like I showed you briefly. I've got a bit of a loose bit there, but it actually turned out better than I thought, so that's great. I'll turn it around on the right side and we can have a look. I've turned it around on the right side and you can see here that it actually looks pretty good and pretty neat. Normally with short row shaping you do get these loose stitches that show up, and I think because it's a woolen spun yarn you don't see that so much here, which is a really good thing. I do have a loose sloppy stitch there which I might be able to pull back to the other side. But the actual seam is looking pretty neat, so it's worked out better than what I thought. And you can see that it's been shaping because here's narrow and here's getting wider. So it's very interesting for me to try out different techniques. I love experimenting with knitting. But I think for me personally, because I've learned how to purl ferrule, it's much easier for me just in these last few rows just to purl back in ferrule and do the shaping. I think that's probably what I would do in the future. But if you absolutely want to avoid purling in ferrule, this might be a good technique for you. And also if you'd like to do a 3 needle bind off and do a decorative edge on the outside, you might also find that fun.
I'm the owner of Val Collection, an artisan yarn dyeing company based in Aschaffenburg, right in the middle of Germany. I'm here in our studio in a room which we use for scanning, labeling and packing our yarns. We put up racks along the walls to have all our sample colors at hand because we use them as color reference for dyeing, but also to plan future shop updates or to work with designers on specific color collections. I've been dyeing yarn since 2010, and during the past years I've had the chance to work with many designers. This always gives me the great opportunity to create something new and unexpected, because the designer's approach to a project is often quite different from my point of view as a yarn dyer. So when Veera asked me to dye up a color for their 5th Interpretations collection, I was super happy, as you can imagine. The shawl design she wanted yarn for is another proof of her talent to come up with an unusual and unique construction, so the color itself had to be a bit more restrained to show the interesting design. As colors are subject to our own perception and linked to our emotions, 2 people can talk about the same color but mean something totally different. So I was very happy that Veera had already set up a mood board in addition to her sketch of the shawl, so this provided me with a very good basis to work on. Here you can see that she had a very dark grey base in mind with only bits of color to create more mood and depth. As we're working with a natural material, transporting the basic idea, which at first seems quite clear, to a workable and unique solution isn't that straightforward. Even more so as Veera chose our Luxe Light base, which is a luxurious fiber blend of 70% baby alpaca along with cashmere and silk. It's super soft and I love to wear it, but it's not the easiest to dye. The structure is different from a sheep fiber, which takes the dye fast in the way you expect it. The non-sheep fibers are not so reliable in their color uptake or color intensity, so the dyeing process can be full of surprises. On this base, for example, the color uptake is very slow and the colors tend to blend into one another, so it's not so easy to show color highlights. Usually when working with this base, I would start with a more variegated base color because the variation in the intensity along the skein would allow room for other color accents. But here Veera had an almost solid grey base in mind, which left hardly other room for other colors to show up. So our trick was to add colors that would turn mossy green, golden brown and burgundy when applied on top of the grey base to give it its subtle glow. This process of creating a new colorway is actually the fun part about our work, because we come up with variations of the theme, and these again can be developed into other colorways. As you might be curious what these colors look like, and to give you a little more insight into our work, we will offer some of these variations in our shop too. But to come back to working with the designer, I just want to say that even when the designer picks the color she wants, our creative process is not finished, but we're constantly moving onward, and that is what I love about my work. I love just colors, and they're a way to express myself. So combining this with the relaxed comfort of a hand-knitted item is just the best match I can think of. My personal gratification is to see the transformation of my hand-dyed yarn to a hand-knitted item by all the talented knitters around the world.
Bonjour! Julie here from Julie Asselin Yarns. Along with my husband Jean-François, we operate our hand dyeing studio in Coaticook, Quebec, in Canada. I've been a knitter most of my life, and being interested in anything fiber, textile related, it came as a second nature for me to start the hand dyeing business six years ago. And Jean-François joined me in the venture 3 years ago. Even though he's not a knitter yet, I feel very fortunate to have him alongside because he is also very creative. He loves to sculpt and draw, and I feel that he adds a different perspective to the work. So I'm very thankful for that. When we work with designers to collaborate together, either creating a color for a design or a design inspired by a color, it's always very personal, and we always make sure to incorporate both our views on color and also the ideas that the designers might want to add in, or certain things that they wanted to express. In the case of the interpretations, we felt very honored that for this 5th edition we were asked to create a color. We have worked with Joji on one of our designs. As with all the other collections, they are based on emotions, interpretations of different words, and the word for our color and design was bliss, which translates to otherly happy, extreme happiness. So coral color seemed very appropriate for that. Joji had created a board that she sent to us that we were able to look at. And what happens is we exchange back and forth together about what it means for her, for us, bliss, happiness, where does this color come from, what does it bring to a person, to a wardrobe, and how does it translate into design. When creating a color, the process can take many different ways, in the sense that I love to think about the color, even maybe create a little history, draw some sketches, think about words, what that color evokes for us. And for me, there's always a lot of research going behind every color. And a good example for that, maybe that I can give you, is, even when you go to pick up some paint for your house and you see them prepare whites or gray, there's always every color coming down and getting into even a very neutral or basic color. So coral, you're thinking that's pink with yellow in it. But it's never as easy as that. What we want to think about is our eyes like to rest, like to make our brain and our eyes, the way that we work, enjoy a color. It needs to feel peaceful. What does that mean in the terms of a very bright color like this? Well, it's not just pink, it's not just yellow coming together to form a bright orangey rosish color. For every color to come together, it would mean that either, you know, there's a little bit of blue in my yellow that makes it greenish, or the pink is a little bit purple, you know, with blue added in, meaning that all the colors are represented. It's a matter of ratio. When you're thinking about colors coming together, it's very different in dyeing, as yellow on red or red on yellow comes out very differently. So there's always all of those variables to take into account. And again, working with designers, it's always very fun to create multiple variation of the same theme, you know, pick out the color that represents or helps the design the most. I hope that you are going to enjoy knitting with Happy as much as we had fun creating it. We want to wish you happy knitting, and thank you very much.
Welcome back. Madeline's here again. She's going to tell us a few of the highlights that she's had. She's been talking about her trip around Australia, and she's visited some places that we've never been, and so we're incredibly jealous about. But a couple of the stories she was telling us we thought you'd like to hear about. So why don't you tell us about Cooper Pedy?
Yes, so one of the highlights in Australia was my trip through the outback, and one of the towns I visited there was Cooper Pedy. And Cooper Pedy is a really bizarre place because it's so hot out there that most people just live underground. So the houses are generally just rooms carved into rock. Cooper Pedy is an opal mining town, so a lot of people might have a bit of raw opal in the side of the, like on their walls in their underground homes. And so it's not uncommon for people to start renovating and digging out new rooms in the hope of finding more opal. But in the past, this has actually led to people breaking into each other's, like into their neighbours' lounge room walls. Yeah. And so they had to implement a rule that the houses have to be at least 4 meters apart, underground at least. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
It is very funny. Because the average temperature is about 46 degrees, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's so hot you have to live
degrees,
underground.
I'm sure sometimes it's even 50 Celsius. Yeah.
And you also visited a kangaroo sanctuary, so tell us about that.
That's right. I visited a kangaroo orphanage that looks after little joeys, so baby kangaroos that are orphaned. And unfortunately in Australia, a lot of kangaroos do get hit by cars. And but in that case, drivers should get out and check on the kangaroo, because even if the kangaroo is dead, there might be a little joey that's alive in its pouch. And then you can take it to animal rescue. So this this kangaroo orphanage that I went to, they had actually recently rescued a little joey called Dorothy.
And we might just put a bit of footage in here that Madeline took. It's super cute.
Yeah. But little Dorothy, she was found on the side of a road on a 46 degrees Celsius day. She was very dehydrated. You could see it. Her skin was shriveled up. Her eyes were glazed over. And she also had bits of her ears missing out because probably crows were pecking at her at some point. And she...
Oh, Dorothy.
I know.
Whoa.
And she also had a broken ankle. So when she got to the orphanage, they put the cast on her themselves because the nearest vet is 550 kilometres away. So
it's amazing. And she's got to be fed every 3 hours, hasn't she, around the clock?
Yeah, and they keep her in this little very snug bag to simulate a pouch.
She's got some damage to this ear. She's got a piece missing out of it here and quite a few bite marks on. So I suspect what's happened, mother's died somehow or other for whatever reason. and the birds have been pecking at Dorothy. That must happen in the daylight. Then she's probably got out of Mum's pouch and gone looking for help. When I picked her up, she's the worst, most dehydrated kangaroo I've ever seen that was still alive. She looked like a screwed up leather bloody glove. When we got her back here, we had to inject fluids in under her skin. Normally when we do that, it blows up a bit like a balloon when you inject the fluid in. And with her, the first 25 mil just went whoosh straight in. We then had 4 days of subcutting her, and that's what you call it, subcut, and feeding her 3 hourly to rehydrate her. Her eyes were glazed over, so sometimes dehydration can cause blindness. It was 46 on the Sunday, so it was probably 40 overnight, I reckon, so no wonder she was dehydrated.
Yeah. Very cute experiences to see. So I hope you enjoy the little bit of footage. So Dulce, thanks for joining us, and you can go now if you want.
Bye.
We are ever grateful to our wonderful patrons for your ongoing financial support. We really do consider you to be part of the show. And we want to ask our viewers that if you are enjoying watching our show and you really value it, to please support it by becoming a patron. It's our product and it's my full-time work, and it does take a tremendous amount of work to regularly produce high-quality content. And you can become a patron for the cost of a coffee per episode. So we do ask you, if you value the show, please support it by becoming a patron. Thank you. Joji and Veera are very kindly offering Fruity Knitting patrons a discount on any individual designs from either of their Ravelry stores. This is a really great offer because Joji has published over 150 designs and Veera has published over 200 designs, so that is a lot of designs to choose from. So patrons, have a fantastic time scrolling through both of their stores. I think you're definitely going to find something that you'll really enjoy knitting up. Coming up now is our interview with Veera Välimäki. Veera has not been interviewed very often, so it was a real privilege for us to be able to interview her, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Veera describes herself as shy, and I describe Veera as very thoughtful, totally charming, and very sweet personality.
Totally sweet, yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to really enjoy listening to her and meeting her and hearing her talk about her designs.
Yep, this is a real treat. We are looking forward to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival coming up later this week. We'll be there in the Podcaster Lounge from 12 till 2 on Thursday and Friday, and sometime on Saturday. One of us at least will be there. So come and say hello. We're really happy to meet you all. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, and to say thank you to you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so see you in 2 weeks.
Yep, thanks
Bye.
for watching today. Bye. Welcome Fruity Knitting viewers. I'm especially excited to be able to present Veera Välimäki on our show. Veera's got a very unique designing style and talent, and quite a few other knitwear designers refer to her work as being very inspirational. And because it's the first time Veera's on the show, we'll start off by talking about her background influences, and then we'll get into discussing and showing off a few of her designs from the Interpretations Volume 5 collection. So Veera, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's so exciting. I haven't done a lot of podcasts before, so it's almost first time for me.
Well, it's our privilege to have you, and we're very excited too. So, Veera, you mentioned in previous interviews that you went to a Waldorf school, and for part of the curriculum, you had to design and knit your own sweater. So you've obviously had a fairly creative environment as a child, and you started experimenting with knitting pretty early on, but then later you studied architecture. So what brought you back to designing knitwear as your profession?
I went back to yarn and needles shortly after my boys were born, and soon discovered that yarn and needles are my media, something I really, really love, and I feel like I get all my creativity out with needles and yarn better than concrete. I also love that with yarn and knitwear design in general, I can be more in charge of the whole process from start to finish. And yes, I do enjoy working alone also. And what I love both in architecture and knitting is that they do have things in common. I feel like they, both of these creative outlets have one part in the world of art. They are always something artful, but also they are not just a painting, they are also something to be used, and they have to serve a function, they have to be functional. So that's probably why both of those fields are so dear to me.
And also knitting's very hands-on, isn't it? And I could imagine that's something that you got very much from your Waldorf experience as a child, is creating things with your hands.
That is certainly true. I love when I can actually do something with my hands, not just on computer, as architecture is so much about these days. Of course, it plays a huge part in knitting also, but I still always have the sample to knit, so I really do love it.
Yeah, and yarn is certainly more beautiful to hold than concrete, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about that. At least warmer.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your Finnish culture. Could you start by telling us maybe how does Finnish knitting differ from other Scandinavian countries, or even Estonia and Russia? And then, do you feel like any of the Finnish culture or even the Finnish mentality has influenced your designs?
Well, I feel like as we are located in between these great big knitting traditions, Estonian lace, all the Scandinavian stranded knitting, which is such a strong tradition, I feel like we are in the middle of all these, and we have many of the same motives, same traditions, but for some reason I feel like the Finnish tradition is more simplified, more also functional in a way. It's not as decorative or fancy as the other traditions. We are kind of the little sister of these big traditions.
So do you feel like this functionality and simplicity is really the core of your designing then?
I must say yes. I always struggle with things like lace or stranded color work, because I can't always see what role it has for the functionality. So I tend to start my knitting from the idea of function, how it works, and I love when a piece clearly shows what it's made of. So yes, shape and the function plays a great role in my design also.
When you're working in the process of your design, what elements are really, really fundamental to you? So you say the function's really important, but what other aspects, like playing with colour or the texture or the silhouette? Do you start at one of these places, or is anything particularly important?
I think it changes a lot from one design to another. Sometimes it's the yarn that clearly maybe has a color or has some texture. The base is something that I feel like it really shout like I need to be worked into a shawl or a sweater or whatever. But that's not always the case. Sometimes I do have some like specific technique I want to try, some specific idea of how I want a garment to look like on me, how I want the silhouette to look like, but it's always changing. So I can't say one plays more important role than the other. It changes a lot. I have to say that I love when a piece clearly shows what it's made of. I love it when I can see from a building like how that is constructed. So of course I have the same approach in knitting. I love to make it clearly visible how this thing is made of. So not to blend it with decorations or anything. I love when the actual form is shown clearly. And sometimes I feel like that also gives the best results when those two really work out together. The shape is so clear that that's all that it almost has.
Actually, the way you're talking about it reminds me of very good Danish design. So I think probably the Danish and the Finns are very close.
I think we have something similar.
But it is interesting how you can do that, because you can also use colour to show the way something's constructed.
Definitely, definitely.
So you and Jorge are great friends. You've been working together now for 5 years on your collections. And you've taken your family to visit Jorge in Argentina, and Jorge's taken her family to visit you in Finland, and the Finnish culture and the Argentinian culture are very, very different. So I'm just wondering, over the last 5 years, as you've got to know Jorge better and the Argentinian culture better, has that affected or influenced your designing or your design process or the colour choices or you in any way?
It certainly has affected me. Like you said, the cultures are so very different. Even though we personally share a lot of things in common. We have similar families. We both have 2 boys. Even our husbands enjoy doing similar things. So it's very lucky. It's like our counterpart in the other side of the world. So that's funny. But yes, there are cultural differences. And I feel like after visiting Argentina, I'm more drawn to bolder colors because the light there is so different from what we have here in Finland. It's so clear and bright, very different what we have, especially on winter when we basically have no daylight at all.
Yeah, because Argentinian I always think of as being a very decorative culture.
That is true, yes.
And maybe sort of flamboyant, a little bit excessive maybe. So how has that influenced you?
Yes, and I must say with Jorge, I think she has like impeccable eye for all the little details, all the bubbles, cables, lace, everything that I feel like I sometimes struggle with. And I hope that I maybe get a little bit of inspiration on my designs from her too.
I think she thinks that about you too. So that's one of the reasons why you're probably working very well together. And you've both got sons that are roughly the same age. So how was that for them, just briefly, going to completely different cultures and getting to know each other?
It was such an adventure for all of us. But what I think it's so special for the boys, they were very little when we first met. So when we flew to Argentina, they were very, very young. That's 5 and 7 years, if I remember correctly. So they really didn't even have a common language. But they went along so well together. They almost instantly started playing with some kind of swords and running around the house. So even without a common language, I think they made really great friends. And after that, of course, they've been learning more and more English. So they now do have more of also a common language that they can actually use together. So it's so much fun for all of us.
Okay, so you and Jorge are obviously working very well together and very smoothly because every year you're coming up with very interesting collections. But what's been the most challenging aspect for you both with this collaboration?
We started this with no great goals in our mind. We just wanted to have fun, do something relaxing together, something new, but trying to keep things not too strict or crazy deadlined. Now, year after year, things have really changed quite a bit. We now have the printed books from Pom Pom Press, which is simply fantastic, and we couldn't be more grateful. But I think the challenge is to keep the same fun and relaxed atmosphere in this whole process, even though it has changed a lot. That is a challenge, but I think and I hope that it shows on the photo shoot pictures that we actually do have a lot of fun when doing this collaboration together.
But I think it's like that with everything, isn't it? But once it gets a little bit more serious or successful, there is always the hard work that has to happen behind the scenes, and then you have to keep reminding yourself that it is actually a lot of fun and making time to keep the fun aspects. But I think you do, and from hearing what Jorge says as well, you have a fantastic time on the shoots.
Oh, we have the best time.
Out of this collection, because there's 12 words. What are your favourite words? Your personal favourites out of the words?
My personal favourites for this collection are explore and movement. And why I love these both is the fact that they give us as designers such a freedom to play and to try out things, and they don't clearly show you like where you should be going, rather than we can approach these from different angles, and I think we have on this collection. So here I have my movement design, which is a summery top from hedgehog fibers skinny singles.
Wow.
With this top, I wanted to explore the freedom of movement. It is slightly asymmetric with the hem, but it's quite simple to knit, so even the adventurous beginner knitter could definitely try this. And as I wanted this also to be fun to knit, so I tried to minimize the need of purling, because I rather knit than purl, if at all possible. So I did my best to make every shaping, everything to happen in a way that it minimizes the need for purling.
I love the little corner, how it's kind of just, it looks like it wants to run away on the hip.
That is true, and I think it looks very flowy and really moving while you are wearing it.
And it's a stunning colour.
It's such a good colour. Another thing I really want to say is that I didn't want to bury this great colour, because it's quite complex with all the speckles, with the coral almost neon base, and then with all the speckles. I wanted the yarn to play the biggest role in this. And then the second one, which is explore. It's a shawl, quite big but quite airy shawl. It's worked in Walk collection, looks light. The design is called Chasing Light, and I love the name. It comes from the color that is kind of, it has such a rich base with grey and green and some purple that I think it clearly it looks so fantastic on this vase. And for the shawl itself, I wanted to study a new way of adding this little lace for for otherwise quite simple design. So this would be perfect for like beginner lace knitter also, because you don't have to do a lot of shaping at the lace. The shaping happens after the lace, so it's hopefully fun to knit also.
That's very clever, and it's very elegant.
Thank you.
And just the way the colours just peep through the little shades of green.
Yes, exactly. I think it's such a gorgeous colour. Kathrin from Walk Collection, she is a genius with colours in general, but I think she outdid herself with this one. And all in all, I think we were so lucky to have so many talented dyers creating a colour just for this collection. We couldn't be happier, and we are ever grateful for each and every colour.
It must be very exciting to be able to work with 12 different dyers.
It is. But it's also what I feel like it of course, because it involves so many more people, it added a whole new layer to this whole book. So it was very fun to see how it all turned out so well.
Yes, you're getting more and more social, aren't you?
I hope so.
With your collection now, all the people involved.
It's also a challenge, yes.
So do you have a third garment you can show us?
So I also wanted to show you this third garment, which is a cardigan, open front cardigan, a long one with great pockets. This is from the team called Shelter. So going for this lovely warm layering piece was my instinct, my instinct from the start. And I think even this colorway, the yarn is dyed by House of Alamode, and the color is such a lovely and delicate blush pink with little black specks and more intense pink speckles as well. And I think it gives you that needed warm feeling for the theme Shelter. So I think with all the yarn, all the colors, all the dyers, they were so well on board with all the themes and how we wanted, what we were aiming for. So we are so happy with this collaboration with the yarns also.
That's a really beautiful colour. How have you, where do you start with that? Is that top down or is it bottom up?
It's a top down sweater. Most of my sweaters are work from top down, just because I wanna maximize the ease so that you can really try it on, make sure that you have the right fit that you are aiming for, and also that you can actually use up most of the yarn. So maybe you can do sleeves a bit longer or the hem a bit longer, and that's why I really love to work my sweaters from top down.
It's a little hard for me to see here, but how is the collar on it? Is that a shawl collar?
It's a shawl collar, yes, really nice and squishy and large, and with garter stitch you get that bouncy fabric that really makes it super warm and fuzzy and lovely to wear.
Yeah, it's stunning. Well, thank you so much for showing us and talking about those garments. It's a really exciting collection. It's fantastic that the two of you are together and you've incorporated 12 really great dyers. So I think it's definitely something that a lot of people will be very excited about knitting up and adding to their little library. So thank you, Veera, so much for joining us on the podcast and talking to us about it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.